I'm joined now by Kat Abu-Ghazaleh, who is running for Illinois' ninth Congressional District. Kat, thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me, Brian.
So, Kat, you announced your candidacy yesterday, obviously had a huge reception, made a big splash in the scene. Do you think that your candidacy is the beginning of basically a Tea Party movement of the left, similar to what we saw back in 2010?
I mean, Tea Partiers aren't like the most fun people to be around, but I certainly hope that it's maybe some other people follow suit and they run because they want to and not because it's been promised to them or because they've been waiting in line or because they think they can make a lot of money off of it. I am trying to make this whole process really transparent because this is kind of enigmatic what happens behind the scenes. And so if that could help anyone also run for Congress, that would be sick.
Why did you decide to run? Obviously, there's a lot of consternation among the Democratic base, but what was your specific rationale for joining this race here?
There wasn't really, a single moment that triggered it. I'm just sick of waiting around for someone else to do what I think needs to be done. Uh, Maybe I get lucky and something really good happens, someone really good happens, and they just really come in and do the best they can, but probably not. I think we deserve better, and we're only going to get that if we start doing it ourselves. So this was more me saying, okay, I'll do it then.
So what's your platform? Like what are you hoping to do differently than what is being done or not being done right now?
Yeah, so in first off, standing up to authoritarians, I think a huge problem in the Democratic Party is this desire to move towards the center, or really move towards the right. That didn't work in 2016. It didn't work in 2024. I don't know why so many people in leadership are like, okay, let's try this again, but harder. That means not leaving behind vulnerable populations, migrants, trans people, people of color. It's insane that, people like Gavin Newsom are getting Steve Bannon on their podcasts instead of actually paying attention to catering, protecting constituents that need it. Um, so that's the big thing is I think they need to do more to stand up to authoritarianism. I have studied this for my education and my career. I know what works, and it's being loud, proud, constant. Um, Not being afraid, and I'm not. So that's the first big thing. But also, I have the vision beyond that. I think that we deserve better, just to kind of put it simply. One of my biggest issues I just call basic existence. Like we should be able to afford groceries, healthcare, and housing and not have to pick two or even pick one. It's insane that we do that. We don't have to do that in any of our, peer countries. So I think we need to think bigger, both in like the long term and how we want to treat our fellow human beings, and in the short term, in whether we want to capitulate to fascists.
How does your background, you had worked at Media Matters for a long time. You've obviously been fully immersed in the hellscape that is the right-wing media ecosystem. How does that inform not only your candidacy, but your knowledge of the threat that we face right now from the right?
Yeah, I mean, it's that. And also, I grew up conservative. I know how like normal conservative people think. Because like when I was a kid, it wasn't really a racism thing for me. There were racist myths I believed, but it was like you're the one being responsible. And there are plenty of people that are just waiting to have that crack in reality where they're like, oh, all of these things are lies, that we should be welcoming in rather than trying to adjust to those lies. But in terms of like my employment or my past employment and what I've worked on, what I've studied, I think it helps a lot. I think one of the biggest issues, especially in this century in the Democratic Party, is they're constantly reacting. And we need to stop
Yeah.
doing that. Like the right is setting the agenda all the time. And it's not even the right on the Hill. It's like people on Fox News. Fox News was first created to prop up the GOP, but now it's the reverse. And we shouldn't be having cable news hosts or, shit posters on X, formerly known as Twitter, deciding what our national agenda will be. being not only like being plugged into that, but knowing the history, knowing, the lore, for lack of a better word, behind these lies, who these people are, what types of threats are, credible, or what type of people you should respect or not, I think is incredibly helpful, just like in a very functional way. But also just like how to respond to it. These people, Elon Musk sued my former employer, Media Matters, which is why I don't work there anymore. I got laid off because of the cost of the lawsuit, because the work was so effective, the reporting was so effective, and he had a temper tantrum. And these people implode if you target them properly.
Right. If they start to feel some pressure, which of course we've seen numerous times from Elon Musk himself, can you speak about the speed of Democrats' response? Because I mean, you've been immersed again in that ecosystem for a really long time, and something that I've noticed that has really been the most consequential thing that Democrats have had to deal with and have failed to deal with effectively is the speed with which we respond to everything that the Republicans do. And so they know that because Democrats are so slow to respond to anything and everything, that will create a vacuum that Republicans immediately fill. And whether they fill it with disinformation, whether they fill it with misinformation, whatever they do, they know that they have that gap where they can fill that with whatever they want their narrative to be, and that narrative is going to be the one that sticks by virtue of the fact that Democrats are too slow to do it themselves.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think part of that is because you have this infrastructure that the right uses to lie, and that infrastructure could instead be used to deliver news, like in an emergency, for instance, like after the hurricanes on the East Coast last year. If there was this infrastructure, not only of like actual news, but a lot of people don't trust that because it's,
Right.
it's the deep state or whatever, but also the same type of infrastructure of people who are talking to each other, people that are in their communities, that are trusted voices on the internet, that are like real people and not, slicked back hair and former congressmen or whatever. If you had that and really tried to invest in that and make sure that accurate information was going out rather than waiting until you know what like the party line is. Even just like a please hold is helpful here.
Yeah.
But also kind of went on the offense, and not offense in lying, just to reiterate, but offense in like, let's get our shit together. Let's be a cohesive unit here. That gap wouldn't exist nearly as much. I mean, nature abhors a vacuum, and that goes for information and leadership.
Well, I think too that the whole reason for the delay in Democrats' response to everything is that we often feel like we have to find some message that is safe, uncontroversial, poll tested. And by the time that process is completely finished, it's completely moot anyway, because the narrative has taken hold with whatever the Republicans have filled, have used to fill that void with, and so whatever message that we had started poll testing on Monday, by Thursday the whole environment is different, and so you waited all this time so that you can have the perfectly crafted message that's gonna bother the least amount of people, but you can't even use it because now they're talking about something completely different. Now they've decided that plane crashes are the result of DEI. Now that they've decided that the ACA is going to lead to death panels. And so that's what happens when you create this massive void that Republicans immediately fill, because to your exact point, we do wait too long. You're the incumbent in your district. You're in a safe blue district. The incumbent, I believe, has been there since the late 90s. To what extent does age and the length of time that the Democratic incumbent has been serving, has that played a role in your decision to run?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of, what it is. It's that, and, the idea of choice. Jan Schakowsky has been a progressive member of Congress since 1998 when she was first elected.
Yeah.
And that was, 5 months before I was born. She stood against the Iraq War. She's done all of these things and has really stood up for American people. And I think that's fantastic. There also hasn't been a competitive primary in this district since 1998. I don't love that, especially because she is in Democratic House leadership. And it's not her fault that there haven't been other primary challengers or serious contenders. Um, but I think that we could all use a few more there. And like when it comes to, age and term length, I think there is something to be said about you're not experiencing the same things that your constituents are. Most people in Congress right now never had to go through school shooter drills like I
Yeah.
and millions of my peers did. They already own a home. I don't think that's ever going to happen for me. They, have insurance. They haven't had to worry about out-of-pocket costs for years. And every single month I go to the pharmacy and I show them like my GoodRx card and they're like, this isn't insurance. And I tell them, I mean, isn't it? And I think that matters because things are just getting worse for the working class. And it's time for new people to step in. What we've been doing hasn't been working, and it's time to do something different.
Well, Hakeem Jeffries was asked about the fact that the incumbent is a longtime progressive. And so how are you thinking about the difference between, okay, yes, this is a member of Congress who is progressive, but also we need to be able to optimize for the media environment that we actually live in a way that somebody who's been in Congress since 1998 might not be able to do?
Yeah, I mean, part of it is shared values, but at the same time, we need effective communication now. And it's not a lot of people stayed home in 2024. Like
Yeah.
a lot of people stayed home. We need to have more effective communicators. And right now, two of the most effective communicators in the Democratic Party are packing entire stadiums in states that they don't even represent.
Yeah.
Uh, I have a history in this and I really like doing it. And I would love to see a Democratic Party that has more people trying to use this media ecosystem to its full potential. I mean,
Yeah.
there are so many things you can do. I am thrilled. Like we're going to be doing streams with constituents to talk about issues live, and I'm really excited for that. That's going to be so much fun, and it's not something that you see a lot in campaigns or with elected officials. We've been having a blast just going through replies. I mean, my social team is just me. And I think that
Yeah.
there's something that people crave is not a completely polished persona that's been focus tested to death. We need to have communicators that are actually communicating.
Kat, how can folks who are watching right now help your campaign?
You can go to catforillinois.com. That's KAT. We need volunteers and we need donations. So if you can chip in, that'd be great. And if you can come to an event or help us remotely, we would love that too. Additionally, if you're thinking about running for office, I just want to encourage you to do so. I'm trying
Yeah.
to do a series of videos about running for Congress specifically, but there are also organizations like Run for Something if you want to run for state or local office. I am just trying to stress this as much as possible. I want to help you win to change where we're going.
Perfectly put. Kat, thank you so much for taking the time. Best of luck in the campaign trail.
Thank you so much for having me, Brian.